the title of our presentation is called Demystifying the Pre-Employment Career Training Program. So what we are doing, however, is a little, not a little different, but it's a piece of the PECT program. So we're going to focus on the pre-ETS today. So all of the services, we're going to talk about a lot of information, give lots of examples, lots of resources, things like that. So, okay. So we're going to go through this little agenda. So we're going to talk about who can participate underneath the contract, understanding the pre-ETS, because we get questions all the time. What services can I provide underneath this category, right? We're going to talk about this description of the 5 pre-ETS and provide examples, resources, things like that. And then we have additional resources to support service delivery. Okay, so with state agencies, we love our acronyms. We love them, love them, love them. So some of the things that you are going to potentially hear about today, IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IPE, which is the DRS service plan. So that's the Individualized Plan for Employment. I did not put the IEP on here because we don't talk about that, but that's the school version. PECT is the contract, right? The PECT. Pre-ETS, those pre-employment transition services, and sometimes I call them pre-ETS, and sometimes I use the pre-employment transition services. So I use those interchangeably. RSA is our federal oversight agency. So we're going to talk about RSA coming up in just a couple slides. And then the reason for the structure of these contracts is because they are a TPCA. They are a third-party cooperative arrangement. And with those contract types come special requirements. So it's important to understand that this contract is a TPCA. And then, of course, VR stands for Voc Rehab. Okay, who can participate? So any student with a disability in Illinois. So you have to be at least 14 and not older than 21 unless you fall under that Public Act 102-0172, which extends that eligibility for the student to stay in school. The individual must be in secondary education. They must be eligible for and receiving special education or related services under Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's the IDEA. And I'm reading this part just because it is so specific. Or is a student who is an individual with a disability for purposes of Section 504 under the Federal Register. And we did change this current year to allow both potentially eligible and eligible students. You might say, well, my gosh, Kristin and Susan, what is the difference between potentially eligible and eligible, right? So this is kind of a reference guide. Potentially eligible students are students that do have a disability, but they do not move through the eligibility process. So we have to still have documentation that would show that, yes, you probably have a disability, right? I always use myself. I'm a type 1 diabetic, have been since I was 8, right? And then, you just kind of have to feed me. So sometimes my alarms go off in meetings. It's one of those things, right? But you could look at my medical and say, you know what? She probably has a disability, right? But this group of students absolutely needs pre-ETS. So we don't move them through full eligibility process. We just gather that disability documentation and we're able to do an agreement and move them into services. If at any time those students need to move into adult services or need some more individualized services, then they become the next category, which is the eligible category. So those students move all the way through the eligibility process. They have an individualized plan for employment that is created, that IPE. They can participate in additional services like adult services, at the time comes, maybe college, things like that. So Those are the two categories, which covers almost every single student with a disability, right? Okay, so this is a really important piece, and I know that we've got Illinois State Board of Education sitting right up here in the front with us. We partner so closely with State Board of Education, right, on the administrative level. And then our collaboration between the schools and the local DRS offices is super, super important, right? And I will not fib. This slide was in the presentation that we did last April at a training. So I just took the same slide and brought it over here because it is so important, right? That collaboration piece is key to the successful partnership of serving students with a disability, right? And it's important to remember that we're not, those pre-employment transition services are not replacing or they're not, Lemitris always uses the word supplanting, but we can't, the IDA services and PREA sometimes get confused. So we're not duplicating services, they're their own right. So it's important to have those partnerships so we can provide correct services. Okay, so understanding PREETs. Okay, so this is we have kind of this very technical stuff, and then we're going to get to some of the fun things, right? So PREETs are federally mandated services. Okay, they're designed to be an early start to career development, career exploration, and lead to better competitive integrated employment opportunities, successful outcomes in the future, right? They increase practical skills. You can practice. I think I talked about all of that in the thing. They also increase the opportunities for further exploration of those comprehensive training programs, those CTPs, vocational certificate training, and post-secondary education opportunities, in addition to employment. So any of these services can be provided individually or in a group. And then this is really just kind of for reference later. It's just a really quick synopsis of what each of the 5 categories covers. So because we're going to talk about those, I'm just going to kind of leave this as a reference slide. Now, this year has been a year of change. It has been a year of learning. And I'm going to say that I'm trying to look at everybody up over here over my laptop, and let me tell you, I'm really kind of short. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking here, and it's a little I'm like, but it really has been a year of change, right? So sometimes I take a little side road, and I do apologize for that. So we had a visit from our Federal Oversight Agency, RSA, in the fall of 2024. So during that year, we learned a lot of things. We learned that certain areas related to PREETs and the PECT contract, then it was STEP, right? We're not really meeting federal guidelines, right? We did not have that administrative oversight. We did not have the internal controls. We didn't have that verification piece that we needed. So we also learned during that process that we did not offer pre-employment transition services statewide, which is also a requirement. So to ensure that we were meeting federal regulations, we had to make changes, okay? So that's kind of the basis of why things kind of went topsy-turvy this year, right? Okay, because we always want to start with that. That is the base for the changes, right? Nobody woke up one day and said, hey, you know what? I am going to turn their worlds upside down, and mine too, right? Didn't do that. It was, oh my gosh, here's what happened. Now we have to look at how we can change it, how we can fix things, right? Okay, so that's the basis, right? So let's talk about different things about the 5 categories. And we do, I swear, have some fun slides in here. So counseling on post-secondary opportunities. I'm shaking this whole podium. We shorten it to Counseling and Post-Secondary Opportunities, but really the full title, and I like to say this because then it encompasses why we're doing the things we're doing, right? The full title is Counseling on Opportunities for Enrollment in Comprehensive Training or Post-Secondary Educational Programs at Institutions of Higher Education. So questions come about how can we provide counseling on post-secondary opportunities for programs that don't go to the higher education. They don't technically qualify because it's all focused on that higher education. But students explore their career path of interest, right? They look at skill development, knowledge gained through the exploration to find the career that best fits their needs, right? Their interests, their abilities. Okay, first fun slide. This is a picture. At the top it says types of post-secondary education. And then underneath that there is it looks kind of like a half a pumpkin because it's got little sections. And on the first section it's got bachelor's degree with a little graduation cap. And then below that it says vocational and technical training. And it's got, some kind of tools. And then it says associate's degree in the next little section of that pumpkin. And it's got a little globe, which I'm not sure how that relates, but they have it underneath associate's degree and master's degree. And then the next little section of the pumpkin, because there are 4 sections, says doctoral degrees, and it's got the little scrolls. And then it also says online and distance learning with a little computer. So these are all types of post-secondary education. Okay, so when you are working with students underneath this category, right, some of the things that you can provide, some of the things that you can document, some of the things that you can bill for, right, for those reimbursable services under the contract, look at some of these guiding questions, right? Does a student have awareness of available programs and requirements in their area of interest? So we've heard a lot during this conference, right, about areas of interest, right? Awareness of things that are available to them. It's so important, and it's been woven through many different presentations because it's essential, right? Do they know what fits their area? Has a student explored training that offers degree or certificate programs, again, that fits their interests? Are family and the student prepared and planning for post-secondary training? So if the student is ready to go, but family is not, and we set them up, we're filling out that FAFSA, we're looking at things. Students ready to buy their dorm room fixtures, right? Their bedding and their decorations, and mom and dad are like, whoa, what? No, we're not there, right? So everybody has to be on board. Have alternate options been explored, right? If they're not able to attend their training of choice. So is there something else, right? Because sometimes you don't get accepted into the program you want to go to. So is there a plan? Okay. Examples of activities. Again, we get questions often about what types of activities can we do, right? So this presentation is really hopefully a reference, right? And I know you guys are doing a lot of these things, but we like to try to provide additional resources, right? So underneath the opportunities for post-secondary counseling on post-secondary opportunities, visiting local post-secondary campuses. Do we go and do that, right? Is that an activity that you do with the students, that teachers do, or does the student do on their own, right? Reviewing examples of college applications. College applications are different, right? Some require a fee, some require no fee, some require letters, some don't, right? Discussing opportunities for financial aid, scholarships, or grants, because that's important. Researching comprehensive training programs available in your area of interest. So those CTPs, that comprehensive training program, those are very, they're very popular right now. We have, transition?
Yeah, comprehensive transition program.
Comprehensive transition program. Good gracious. We will fix that before that is up there. Comprehensive transition programs. Makes much more sense. Inviting recent graduates, right? So students that have moved on into college or other things, having them come back and talk to the students. Researching how to request accommodations. Now, I know that a lot of high schools work very closely with their disability services at the colleges. Offer lessons on financial planning and budgeting for college expenses. So it's related especially to when you're a college student, right? If you spend your whole paycheck on burgers your first week and you have to make it 2 weeks, what you gonna do, right? Provide information on available networks of support while participating in post-secondary education opportunity. I think that's so important, having that additional support. So we're not just sending you off, but what kinds of supports do you have? So, okay, another fun slide. All right, so we've got 2 pictures up here. So on the left, and it is a U of I picture. It's students standing around, and there's a little sign, one of those little, I don't know, it's a board sign, right? And it says campus visit. So that could be an opportunity, right? So, and U of I. And then on the right side, there is like a road sign, and at the top it says financial aid. And then one direction is pointing towards loans, one arrow is pointing towards scholarships, another FAFSA, another arrow is work study, and then another arrow is grant, with a person standing there with question marks around their head, right? Which is the best for me? So those are the just some examples and some things to help out with the counseling and post-secondary opportunities. Introduction and self-advocacy. Okay, so instruction and self-advocacy. So looking at activities that practice requesting reasonable accommodations at work, right? Providing opportunities. Yes, it is. Yep. Okay. No, you're good. You were good. You were good.
So, sorry about that. All right, so instructions and self-advocacy. As Kristin just said, activities that practice requesting reasonable accommodations at work. You can actually, get the reasonable accommodation forms for the school that you work in and help them practice filling those out. Provide opportunities for students to practice talking about their strengths and their challenges and their disabilities. I think a lot of times we spend time trying to pretend like we're not going to talk about not talking about the disabilities, but it's important that we do talk about them because students need to be able to advocate for themselves when they enter the world of work. And then I put on here, practice filling out generic reasonable accommodations. So instruction and help, these are just some kind of guiding questions to look at. Is the student able to express and understand their strengths, abilities, disabilities, challenges, career interests, and utilizing their preferred method of communication? I know a lot of our Centers for Independent Living spend a lot of time working on this with students, so they're a really good resource for that. Knowing your needs. Does the student have a working knowledge of the types of supports, services, and accommodations they need to be successful at work? In a training program, in the community, living independently. And the last thing, knowing how to get what you need. Are they able to set goals, develop a plan for achieving those goals, advocate for their rights and responsibilities at work, in a training program or socially, and know where to go for assistance. So these are important things to consider when you're looking at instruction and self-advocacy. So some of the things that came up with this, one is exploring the Job Accommodations Network. It's a website online, JAN, it's commonly called, with the student. You can help students learn to identify what they need and how to ask for the things that they need. So for instance, I'm thinking as students transition to adulthood, a lot of times they'll come to us and they don't know what they need. And so a lot of times we will make a referral to IATP or UIC, and they come and they do an assessment with them and determine what kinds of things will best help them with the job that they're looking at, their goal, even school whatever it might be. And we can help provide a lot of that assistive technology. Another thing is developing a peer mentoring group that works through issues related to self-advocacy skills in the workplace. I mean, students learn a lot from each other, and if we connect them and they learn to talk about their experiences, it's just going to be better for them in the long run when it comes to education and post-secondary employment. Can offer lessons on disability disclosure. I know I was in a session yesterday, and the teacher said that her district doesn't allow them to mention disability. And they're not allowed to talk about disclosing the disability to their employers. And so that's kind of an interesting perspective. And the advice that was given was really good, take the student's lead. I mean, if the student, they need to know how to express their disability. So those are important. And then role-playing activities are always a good idea for students to practice. There's a little, at the bottom, it just says peer mentoring, little slide or little graphic. Develop individual self-advocacy goals. I know that schools, like they didn't do this when I was in school 100 years ago, but my kids, and they would give them a calendar and teach them how to use a schedule, how to use a calendar, keep up with those things. But also learning how to set goals for the year, how to make appointments, order books, those kinds of things. Anything that they, might need to advocate for themselves. Participation in youth leadership groups or activities. A lot of times the schools have student leadership, most schools have student leadership activities, so those are important. But again, peer mentoring group, encourage students to lead their own IEP meeting. I've been in IEP meetings where they have the student is essentially the host, and that's a really good idea because then they have a better understanding of what's going on for themselves. Develop opportunities for students to discuss their strengths and challenges and disability and how it might impact work. Again, disability disclosure, advocating for rights and responsibilities, using role-playing to allow students to practice disability exposures. I was thinking on, when I was talking about Jan, I mean, that's a good place for students to go to learn about what kinds of things are out there and what are their rights as far as reasonable accommodations. And reasonable accommodations are really, really creative. I know I just heard of a staff member who got a reasonable accommodation for AI. Now, the state is not a big, let's go AI, right? We have one program we can use. But recognizing that that can be a real help for a lot of people. Next, we're going to talk about job exploration counseling. So just some of the things that go along with that, questions to ask. Does the student have a general awareness of careers, various occupations, and career pathways? Has the student been able to explore occupations and career pathways in their area of interest? And is the student prepared to express their vocational interests and identify career pathway they choose? So this is kind of near and dear to my heart because back in the day, I was going to be a computer scientist. That was what I was going to do. And I took the first class, and I was like, oh, this is not for me. I need to work with people, not computers. So what I did was I took a class at my college that was just basically about setting goals, like what do you want to do? And so we did career interest inventories, and I ended up here. They were spot on. It was exactly where I needed to be. But I could not imagine looking at a computer all day. Some of the things that you can do to get to explore job tasks and requirements for at least 2 career options, right? Because sometimes the first one doesn't always work out. I went to school for special education. I ended up in social services. Very closely related, as we all know, but sometimes what your initial plan is changes a little bit. Interview people in the career path that you're interested in. Use resources on the Illinois WorkNet like careers, wages, and trends so you can look at, okay, is this a job that's out there? Is this something I'm interested in? Working for DRS, I'm always just every day I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was a job, right? I mean, there's so many different things people can do. And Illinois WorkNet has a lot of information out there about jobs. Spend time in class writing what questions you would like to ask for the interview. Discuss remaining professional, friendly, and confident during the interview. And then practice writing a thank you letter for the person you interview. Okay, so this is where I went down the rabbit hole. I'll just be honest with you. So interest inventories, because that is, I mean, like I said, that's really what helped me figure out where I wanted to be. So it helps them identify their preferences or patterns of interest in different activities, subject, work environments. Students tend to enjoy these kind of activities. I mean, I know I've done this with, I did teach for a while, and when we did this in class, the kids loved it. They just really liked getting the information. And discovering preferences along with vocational counseling can help a student narrow down their vocational goals. So I'm going to show you a bunch of slides about interest inventories because I found so many out there. I thought they were really cool. But this particular interest inventory was photos. So for a non-reader, someplace that they can go and figure out, what do I want to do? This was hobbies flashcards, but it also could help identify what are my interests, what kinds of things are things that I want to be involved in. Profile expert, I think we're a little mixed up here, but this might be my fault, so I'll apologize. So the next one I had was a talent acquisition portal. And I know that there is some training going out. Teachers are going to be able to get access to this so that they can use this in their classrooms with the students so they can see. The talent acquisition portal, it's a website. It was developed for persons with disabilities to find jobs in their area of interest. And it's a nationwide website. There's lots of jobs on there. It's specifically, though, for customers who are working with vocational rehab or some other approved agency. So it's not just everybody can't just get access to it. And you can allow students to create their profile in TAP. They can look how to search for jobs in their area of interest or geographical location. So it's a pretty cool website. And we have had some customers get hired out of there into some really, really good jobs. So it's worth looking into. We serve approximately 1 million individuals with disabilities per year. Overall, VR in the United States, I should say. Illinois, we're not that much. But TAP offers the largest pool of candidates with disabilities in the U.S. It also offers services for businesses to post jobs, search resumes, based on skill sets, geography, interview candidates, and have online job fairs. So we had a customer who went for an interview for a job, and she did not get hired for that job. However, the person who interviewed her told somebody else in their department about her, and she did get hired for that job, and it ended up being a better fit. So, the companies that use these really are committed to hiring people with disabilities. So that's where I got confused, and I'll apologize. We're back to interest inventories. So, I think it might have been me. Anyway, so these are just, again, there are resources here. I'm not going to read all this too, but would you rather do this or that? That kind of thing in the interest inventories. This one was a pretty quick one. It's sort of it was like 4 or 5 questions. It was but it kind of narrows down your interest into larger job families to give you an idea. Another one. Again, I went down the rabbit hole when I got looking at it. I was like, oh, this is cool, this is cool. So, ONET Online. ONET Online, probably most of you are aware of it. It's a federal job site. There's lots of information on there, lots of information about, I think it links to the Department of Labor, so you can look at trends, what jobs are available, those kinds of things. We one time had a customer come to us, and he wanted to make knives for a living, and he wanted us to set him up. There is no labor market for people to make knives. It's like non-existent, right? And so we spent a lot of time counseling him to help him get into an area where he could actually be successful and get a job. More, WorkNet has interest inventories. I learned the other day they apparently also have like a video interview, like you can practice interviewing on it, so that's pretty cool too. Moving to workplace readiness training. Workplace readiness it's a variety of, I don't know, maybe. Okay. We should have labeled them.
We totally should have. All right. We are not tripping over this cord. Okay. I think so. Okay, so workplace readiness training, and again, the reason we are spending so much time on really giving lots of examples and lots of resources is because the whole PECT contract is based on these 5 pre-employment transition services, right? These are the services that we are providing those students. So workplace readiness really does have so many different things, right? It includes social skills, interpersonal skills, independent living skills, orientation and mobility training, and others related to work, right? These are kind of those soft skills, that financial training, the travel training, all of those things, right? How to interact with coworkers, supervisors, others, right? Maybe other students. Sometimes, right? Teachers. They're building an understanding of social and interpersonal skills and their importance in the workplace. Okay, so looking at, and we looked at all these guiding questions, right? So guiding questions to help the student really achieve their best goals, right? Their best life ever, right? Does the student have awareness of the skills necessary to obtain and then maintain that competitive integrated employment? Do they have the social and interpersonal skills to be successful in the workplace? So in that earlier presentation, right, are you showing up clean? Are you showing up, where you're not like talking inside my bubble, right? I've got that bubble, right? And so like that personal distance, right? Have there been opportunities to practice those in a classroom setting or in the community, like setting up things where they are interacting with different people than they normally do, right? So if you're comfortable with somebody, then you act differently than if it's somebody you're just meeting or it's somebody in a professional setting, right? Let's see here. Does the student understand how punctuality, my fave, and following deadlines affects employment, right? My dad always said, if you're on time, you're late. He was very strict about that, right? So we were always like 10 or 15 minutes early, maybe sometimes a little bit more. But all of these things help guide those services and those activities that we're providing underneath that contract. Okay, fun slide. So for workplace readiness training, right, it has so many different facets in it. So the first little picture is this financial management, and it's got a guy standing there with his finger pointing to a light bulb, like, oh, hello, right? And there are 6 little bubbles. There's a bubble with a paper money, and then there's coins and a wallet, and then a piggy bank, credit cards, and a calculator, right? Instead of a calculator, I feel like you just use your phone, right? Who uses a calculator? And then the second picture is a little, it's gonna be a little hard to read on the screen, but when you get the slides, you can always blow that up, right? It's soft skill icons. So there are so many different soft skills. And again, that's something that's been a theme throughout the presentations I was gonna say this week, but it's really been 2 days. Because those are so important, right? Those can make or break you, right? So all kinds of different services that students need to learn in those skills, right? Okay. So some examples of activities under workplace readiness. Now, again, these are just a little snippets because workplace readiness has so many different areas within it. So that financial literacy training, right? The National Disability Institute has a really great training on financial literacy, right? Is that something that could be explored? Assisting students in exploring how to set up or join a virtual meeting. Do they know how to do that? Participation in mock interviews, right? Those orientation and mobility skills and training for those individuals that have vision issues. Let's see here, practice problem-solving skills, provide opportunities for students to learn about personal care. You've heard about that too, right? It's very important. Practice skills such as food prep, clothing management, and our household maintenance, right? Travel training. Workplace readiness has so many different areas that can be explored. And not every student needs the same thing, right? So lots of opportunities to provide lots of different services underneath that contract. Okay, so looking at some of the guiding questions for work-based learning experience. This is you. Look at that. Hopefully this is helpful.
So I wanted to add on to just a little bit of what Kristin was saying. I know that Regions Bank has a financial literacy program. I believe it's free, and you can just contact them and get access to it. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And the other thing I wanted to say is one of the biggest things we hear from our CRPs and our and jobs where we place people is that most people lose their jobs to social skills, right? To those soft skills. So those are really, really important. So just, that's why you hear so much about them, I guess. So work-based learning. So some guiding questions. Does the student have a general awareness of work and what it means to have a job? I grew up with a dad who hated his job. Like every day, hated going to work. And so, I didn't have a great outlook on work, right? So, it's important that they understand what that means. Has the student had opportunities to practice and improve workplace skills? If the student is prepared to use the workplace to gain, is the student prepared to use the workplace to gain knowledge and skills to help them connect school experiences to real-life activities and future career opportunities? And then last, paid work-based learning experiences, which we've heard a lot about the last couple days. Does the student and family understand the impact of participation in paid work-based learning experience? And a lot of times we will hear from families who say, I don't want my student to do this because they're going to lose their benefits. They're going to lose their health insurance. They're going to lose. So DOORS can provide benefits counseling when the student graduates so they can see, okay, well, if I go to work, how is this going to affect my benefits? Obviously, probably, eventually, your salary is going to go down, but that doesn't mean you're going to lose your health insurance, maybe. So the benefits counselors work with students individually on that. Some other ideas for work-based learning experiences. In-school or after-school job opportunities, obviously, to participate in experiences in the community. These include a lot of different things that can include internships, job shadowing, workplace tours, paid and non-paid work opportunities, and strengthen opportunities to gain experience and work skills in a competitive, integrated environment. So job shadowing was one of the ones that came up right off the bat. These could be accompanied by school staff or alone. Some things a student can do during job shadowing. They can observe how a person uses software or technology, sit in on client or team meetings, assist with minor administrative tasks, take a tour of the location, ask the person questions about their career, and take notes about questions or ideas that they might have. Volunteer activities. Internship or volunteer activities. These can be paid or unpaid. It helps skill development and employability, things like teamwork, communication, problem solving. The statistics show that students who volunteer are more likely to graduate and also tend to perform better academically. First-hand experience and exposure to different career fields. I told you I started out in computers, and then I did the Intro to Social Work class. And in the Intro to Social Work class, they placed me with, do a 4-day practicum with a school social worker. And a lot of the students didn't want their privacy, because of their privacy, they didn't want me in there. So I spent most of my time in the special education classroom when I did that internship. So that's how I ended up where I'm at, right? First-hand experience and exposure to different career fields. It also builds a social network. I have a niece who just graduated. She did an internship every summer. They hired her when she got out of college. She just started a new job, and so she got out of college with a job. So it's a good way to build that network and helpful to her career. Improves confidence and career readiness, and it also gives you experience navigating challenges. Students can spend time in class, you know, looking at who do they want to interview, what do they want to learn from them, setting up the experiences. So that's kind of our presentation on pre-ETS. We have a lot of resources here. We will upload the, and I'll just kind of go through these. I'm not gonna read all of these, but we'll upload this to the website so everybody has access to the resources. This is our contact information. You're welcome to contact us at any time, but we thought we'd open it up for questions if anybody has any.